Last game, before we get to our take for 99, we got to talk about this game. It was the first game to kick us off in these divisional playoffs. And the question that we have right now is, did Lamar Jackson change his postseason narrative, Zay?
Um, uh, it's a tough question for me. Because the narrative I always read that was he wasn't a thrower. He wasn't a guy who sits in a pocket who's going to throw the football. He wasn't the confident thrower that teams should plan on making him throw the football, because that's what you want to see Lamar Jackson do. You don't want to see Lamar Jackson run the football down the field 200, 300, 400 yards in a playoff game, because that's his strengths. You want to play him towards his weaknesses, which is throwing the football. And I think for me right now, I don't think that narrative has changed yet. I think the Ravens did an absolute amazing job running the football. Lamar Jackson had 49 rushing yards in that first quarter. I think the Ravens had finished the game with 200 plus rushing yards that game. And the threat to throw the football wasn't there. It wasn't the scheme. The game plan was, I guess, essentially was to force him to throw the football. That team didn't do it, and the Texans didn't do it. So I think the Ravens, that narrative is still out there on Lamar Jackson. I think we're still going to see that in this upcoming playoff game, in terms of they got to try to force him to throw the football a lot more. They want Lamar Jackson to throw the football 30 times this game. I think that is going to be the game plan. Force him to throw the football, because his mistakes are going to come from him throwing the football opposed to him running the football. It don't matter how hard you hit Lamar Jackson. He is going to make sure he holds the football and keep running the way he runs. That's Lamar Jackson. That's the Ravens. They run the football. So I think the narrative in terms of him throwing the football still out there. Him winning games, I think he just destroyed the Houston Texans, a team that looked pretty solid against most teams in the NFL and during the regular season and the playoffs. I think his narrative as a winner has changed. I think he is focused on, like, the guy himself is talented enough to win these football games and able to play when the lights is brightest. So him as a winner narrative, I think that has changed. But him as a thrower, I think the narrative is still out there for him. And I think why am I drawing a blank on the Chiefs will try to force him to throw the football a lot and force him to throw the football a lot. There's going to be a thrower's game. It ain't going to be no you're running 200 yards this game. You're going to have to see him as a quarterback throwing the football, and I'm still interested to see how that will be in this game.
Zach, the mic is yours.
Yeah, let me start off by saying this. I think early in this game, I'm not going to lie to you guys, like, there were a lot of things that happened that made me think, like, man, are we really about to do this again? Like, the Ravens blew some opportunities early. I didn't even love the Texans' game plan. I think D'Amico defensively did a really good job in the first half, really trying to confuse Lamar Jackson. But Bobby Slowick, I mean, this guy must have been too focused on his other interviews around the league throughout the week, because every time the Texans were running on first down with Singletary, they were just getting stopped. And I just would have liked to see a more aggressive game plan. Like, you have C.J. Stroud. You're a huge underdog in a tough spot on the road against Lamar Jackson. I would have loved to see him put the ball in Stroud's hands a little bit more. But, yes, when Steven Sims returned the punt for Houston to tie the game at 10 going into the first half locker room, I was like, man, are we really about to do this again? But Lamar Jackson, apparently, he said he cussed some teammates out in the locker room, and they did what they needed to do in that second half, and he was phenomenal. Lamar Jackson, the first quarterback in the history of in the history of the NFL to have 100 yards rushing, 100 yards passing, a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and a passer rating over 100 in either a playoff or regular season game. This guy's unreal. And I just got to say, like, the Ravens are a great team. Like, they literally, every game they've played in this season, they've had the lead at the 2-minute warning. And it's just so noticeable to me, like, what they do against great teams. They don't only win, but they, like, really put their foot on the gas and leave no doubt. If you look at their losses, they lost early in the season in overtime to the Colts. They somehow lost in Pittsburgh to the Steelers early in the season. And they lost to the Deshaun Watson-led Browns. But every time they've played a good team, whether it's the Lions, whether it's the 49ers, whether it's the Bengals when they had Joe Burrow, whether it was the Texans, like, this team the Dolphins, this team just comes to play in the biggest moments against the best opponents. And Lamar Jackson is unreal. What a player he is. I think he really needed a game like that. And he avoided what would have been a bad loss, but he left no doubt. So I think he did a good job changing his postseason narrative. That was a phenomenal performance, and props to the Ravens. They are an unreal team.
Did Lamar Jackson change the narrative? It's funny because I feel like sometimes we get caught up, in narratives. I this was a narrative. I can't lie. I'm not going to sit here and say, I thought otherwise. I wasn't at times feeding into the narrative. At the end of the day, when you talk about great players, we talking the achievements. When you talk about Tom Brady, you talk about chips. How many chips, right? So it's natural for us human beings to kind of get boxed into, these narratives about, oh, well, your record is 1-3. You know what's going on. Why can't you do it in the playoffs? Because we want everything now. We want guys to be great now. But if you look in history, if you look in the book of football and you look at history, there were great quarterbacks who struggled early in their careers to win playoff games, which is why this narrative had no merit to begin with. When you talk about a guy like Peyton Manning, 0-3, to start off his career in the playoffs. Do your homework, guys. Okay, 0-3. And guess what? He went on to win 2 championships. Matthew Stafford, 0-3 in his playoffs. First, 3 games, 0-3. And then he goes on and win a Super Bowl. Matt Ryan, 0-3 to start off his year before he got to a Super Bowl. He didn't win it, but he got there. And he defeated that narrative that he couldn't win in the playoffs. So, even the NBA, Giannis kept going. Can't get over the hump, got over the hump. Bingo. LeBron James kept going, can't get over the hump. Joined Dwayne Wade and Ross here. Championship, baby. Take that for data. It happens with the greats. We got to give these guys time, time to grow and time to learn and, experience. Peyton Manning got better. Peyton Manning was not a great pot when he came to the NFL. 30 interceptions to be exact. He said he worked on his craft. He got better with his mechanics. And he became that dude. And Lamar Jackson has worked on his game and he's became that dude. And I think in this game in particular, when you talk about how it went, the Texans, they did a good job of, or so they thought, trying to stack the box and load the boxes to bring the blitz. They actually entered the game with the one of the least blitz rate in the NFL. And over this game, it became the largest. Like they blitz Lamar Jackson 75% of the time of the plays, which is funny because that's how the Titans a couple years ago beat Lamar Jackson. Load the box, forcing the pass. Can he beat us through the air? And Greg Roman didn't have those answers. He didn't make those adjustments. That's why they went home. But your boy Tom Munkin, who John Harbaugh hired, he made those adjustments in the game, and Lamar Jackson has grown as a passer. And that's what happened. So when they load the boxes, they ran some quarterback, fake quarterback runs. One play I'm talking about is where they ran a quarterback sweep. They shifted Lamar Jackson to the left, and he stopped and threw the ball to Isaiah Likely for a touchdown. The pass play was not likely, but it happened because it went to Likely. It was a touchdown. We thought it was a run. We load the box. That's how you make an aggressive defense pay for being aggressive right there. That's adjustments. Okay, they had 118 yards in the first half. Everybody's panicking. Martin Luther King came from the dead, was watching the game like, oh my God, what's going on? I'm worried. I'm referencing a guy that looked just like Martin Luther King. Okay, I want nobody to take that wrong with that. It was a guy that looked just like Martin Luther King. Okay, looking sad. You can hear a pin drop. You can hear the birds chirping in the air. It was quiet going into halftime. 118 yards. You hear Zach, is this going to happen again? And then you get out of halftime. I forgot how much plays they ran in that first drive. I think it was 6 plays.
They got a big kick return too. I think that
a big kick return really set that drive. I'm glad you pointed that out. It really got that drive jump started, and it took 6 plays for 55 yards for Lamar Jackson to win, where he scored on a 15-yard run, and that's how he got into the flow of the game. They woke up, realized it was the playoffs, and they made the adjustments accordingly. And you got to give credit to Lamar Jackson, number 1. You got to give credit to Todd Monken, number 2, and Mike McDonald for what he did defensively, stopping CJ Stroud in that offense. And that's why you have a good coaching ecosystem and for moments like this to protect your quarterback, to protect them from these narratives. And that's the things that Greg Roman couldn't do in the past. And that's why Lamar Jackson had no adjustments. And that's why his record was 1-3. But as Lamar's getting older, getting wiser, and becoming better overall as a quarterback, he's able to defeat a narrative. And I think he did so, even though that narrative didn't really have no merit.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't know yet. I gotta see in this Chiefs game if he's still the passer that we're saying he is. The Tom Munkin is. We have to see it because we didn't. The Texans didn't force him to throw the football enough. They didn't stop the run game at all. They ran for 200 plus yards that game. So in order to see if he's the thrower that he is, it has to be the running game is not an option. Throwing the way out of the game is where it has to go. And I think against the Chiefs, a great opportunity to show that. I think it's a great opportunity to show that. I'm not saying that he hasn't improved as a passer because I think he has. I think he definitely has improved as a passer. But in the playoffs, we have to see that because the Ravens are still showing us they're a run first team, a run second team, and a run third team. That's their makeup, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But when your running game, like you said it before, when the Titans stacked the box, there was nothing else. If the Chiefs stacked the box against Lamar Jackson for 4 quarters, is the throwing game going to be good? Is it going to be pitch perfect? Is it going to be accurate for 4 quarters to get them out that rut? I have to see it because I do believe he has improved as a passer. I don't know if he has improved to the point where there's nothing else going on for him. Is the passing game going to be there and ready to go? We have to see it. But I think the Chiefs is a perfect team to go against to see if it works is because the Chiefs are a team that always makes your strengths dimmer and your weaknesses bright. So we're going to see exactly what this Ravens team can and cannot do against the Chiefs.
I mean, hey, if they could make the Ravens' weaknesses bright, then that's a good sign because they have none. I think when you talk about, that narrative that you're talking about in regards to the Chiefs, I think that's another narrative that's not this. Like I think he already defeated that monkey of can't win in the playoffs. He did that. He won a game. That's playoffs. But the Chiefs that you're referencing is a different narrative. The narrative is, can you beat Patrick Mahomes? Not can you win the playoffs? Can you go toe to toe with Mahomes? Because we know his record against Mahomes. He's 1-3 against Mahomes. That's the narrative. That's a new narrative now. And if he loses that game, he'd be 1-4. Then there's another narrative that we running with. You can't beat Patrick Mahomes. So I think this week's game is important for that next narrative that's going to be presented. You can't beat Patrick Mahomes. We know they was able to run the football. The Ravens rushed for 229 yards in this game against the Texans behind a committee of 3 guys. We saw what Buffalo did running the football against the Chiefs. They're going to be able to run the football and have success. And the question is, when it's time to pass, can they pass? I think they can. I think they've been doing that this year for the most part. And I think in this game, they'll be able to do so. But like I said, going up against Patrick Mahomes, can you beat that guy? And that's why I think this narrative is already done with. On to the next narrative, and that narrative starts on Sunday.
One last thought, guys. It is just crazy to me. Like, it really wasn't that long ago that this guy, he was a free agent technically, and there were a lot of teams that maybe could have had him. And we all heard the narratives. Oh, he can't win in the playoffs. He can't stay healthy. Is he really worth the money? And these owners really came together and said, you know what? We're just not repeating that Deshaun Watson contract that the Browns somehow gave him. And even though I understood where they were coming from, like, man, it is just crazy how much we were talking about this guy potentially not being a Raven anymore. And now he's probably one of the most valuable assets in the entire league. Like, what a player. That was an insane performance on Saturday.
I agree. Any last words before we go to the take for 99?
One last quick thought. And I don't want to harp on this too much. Like, man, I think the Texans, the environment and the atmosphere of the game really got to them. Like, shout out to the Ravens. I think we underestimate M&T Bank Stadium as one of the better home field advantages in the league. We talk about Arrowhead, we talk about the Seahawks, Gillette Stadium, like all of those. But I think Baltimore's right up there. Those fans forced 8 false start penalties on the Texans. That really took them out of the game from the beginning. And Houston, man, that team's future is so bright. What a season. CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans, Will Anderson, Nico Collins. Hopefully Tank Dell could stay healthy, but this team is going to be a problem going forward. And I think that's not going to be the last big game we see CJ Stroud in for sure.
I agree 1,000%. Football momentum is everything in this game, especially in the playoffs. And I think they had a golden opportunity. I mean, they made that field goal. Everybody's missing field goals. These field goals are swaying games. Believe it or not, 3 points is everything. Way how these games been going. And they had an opportunity to take the lead, and they didn't. And I think that's what gave momentum to the Ravens, along with that kickoff return. But you do have to give them credit. They was undermanned. They was undervalued all year, and they were still able to fight because they had an elite quarterback. And that's why I keep going back to this elite quarterback when we having discussions about guys like Josh Allen, is the window open. Anytime you have, look at what the Texans have, and they were still contenders. They didn't have much. You know, they lost Tank Dell. They only had Nico Collins. Anytime you have an elite quarterback, your championship window is going to be open because he's the equalizer. He's the equalizer of certain issues pertaining to your roster. He's the equalizer of youth. You know, a rookie head coach. And CJ Stroud, expect to see him ranked very high on my quarterback rankings that I keep referring to. I don't know why, because that ain't coming anytime soon. But, you know, just to see quarterback play like what CJ Stroud has given us in his rookie year is something that, you know, I probably won't forget. You know, this probably was the best rookie season of any quarterback that I have remembered since I've been watching the game of CJ Stroud. And credit to the Texans, they'll be back.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.